Hello, everyone. I am your host, Amit, filling in for Lemerk, and accompanying me in the caster booth here is KraKRNs. Please say hello, KraKRNs.
Hello, everyone.
All right, for first time watchers, the Naval Sports League, or NSL, is the ultimate naval competition in the game of Holdfast Nations at War. League battles are simple. Two teams, each led by a single admiral, pilot 5 large capital ships and 2 small support boats with the goal of sinking as many capital ships as they can within 35 minutes. Whoever sinks the most wins, and if there's a tie, we decide the winner by overall score, as determined by the game. Teams consist anywhere between 20 to 40 players, and the league provides mercenaries to balance out any number disparities between the teams. Every player in the league, be they a team player or a mercenary, is competing hard for end of season awards and accolades. Every battle will take place on a randomly chosen map with randomly chosen wind direction. Both of these factors mean that no two battles will ever be the same. The league lasts for 9 months, from late February to November 2025, and 3 games a month for you to enjoy. Once that main season is over, the top 3 teams of the league will duke it out to determine who wins the champion's crown. The NSL is a collection of Holdfast Naval's most talented admirals, officers, and crews, and the tactical gameplay you'll see here is at a higher level than anything else this game has to offer. We hosts and co-hosts will be here the entire time to help you understand the decisions and strategies you'll see at play in the NSL Coliseum. So without further ado, let's get to the pre-game coverage. I'd also like to give a shout out to our camera operators today, who are Chewy, Piet, Lucius. They'll all be providing the various views that you'll see throughout the match, as well as, of course, myself and KraKRNs. And we also cannot forget about our director, Mr. Professor, who ties the whole production together. Okay, so KraKRNs, welcome back. Well, first of all, welcome to the first stream co-host you've been on this NSL production. I've been here many times before. I kind of know the drill. Some people may even be bored of me. I will do my best to make sure that is not the case today. But welcome to you, sir. Let's set the stage. Coming out of the preseason, Leviathans were technically undefeated in battle with a 5-0 record, but they were forced to bump that down to 4-1 in the standings due to an unfortunate situation in the first match, giving that first point to their opponent instead. But despite that early setback, they did continue onward to win most of their matches, and most of those victories were earned under Atticus, while Lemerk spent most of his time up here with me, which you'll see. And but today he'll once again be commanding his fleet. What do you have to say about the Leviathans coming into this this first season?
Well, you've really got to commend, although a technical problem or really a bit of a rule sort of thing with the them conceding the defeat in terms of some of the ships in the game. They were hit with gunboats and such. So I think it definitely shows that there's a lot of integrity within the NSL, and I really like that. But the Leviathans are a really strong team, of course. They are very dominative in terms of their naval capabilities, and as we said, there's some really great captains and gunners in there. So
Yeah.
I can give you a bit of a breakdown of some of the sort of favoured players in today's match, especially for the Leviathans.
Yeah, let's start off with the Leviathans. Let's see who the heavy hitters are.
Yeah, so naturally we've got Seawolf. He's very versatile player. He's great on the carronade especially. He as a gunner, he's great, and as a captain, that's what I mean with some of these players. They're great all rounders, and it's nice to see some of the best of the best come into the match, and to see, or for everyone to have a look at how great they really are. You've also got Gunner. He loves a good cannon.
Oh, he's deadly. One of the most deadly
Yeah,
people. Uh,
he is. He's one of the in the previous match against the KRN. He was one of the big killing machines that were serving at the time. And of course, you've got people like Icy, who again he's very versatile. You usually find him on the carronade, and he loves to snipe the cannons. That's something that he's renowned for. A little bit like Seawolf in that sense.
yeah. Yeah, and the other thing about that is Gunner with he was the top player on the one with the top kills in the preseason. So I'm very interested to see what his and I know he's able to command ships as well. So I'm interested to see how they employ him. But given his strength, he's probably going to be doing the gunnery again. Now, looking over at the Kraken's side, they initially did very well for themselves in the first half of the preseason.
Yeah,
They were technically, or they were going undefeated for their first three matches. And their fourth match, they did come up against the Leviathans, as they are here today, and they
yeah,
lost their streak. And sadly, that also continued with their loss again in their final match against the Royal Blackfeet, which many of us had incorrectly surmised would have been, in the bag for them. So, uh, you want to take me through who their top players from the preseason are as well?
yeah. Of course, and just a little bit about the Krakens is
For sure.
they they are a great team. Much like the Leviathans, they're dominating in naval, and it's nice to see so early on in the season two of the Colossals go against one another. I believe this might be our chance to see what the teams are made of. As it being so early, it's quite exciting. But we have some great players here for the Krakens. Sasborough is one of the players in today. He is one of their top scorers and probably one of the favors to do so well in today's game, along with Karen Cameron. Again, he's a killing machine. Um, I don't know if he's captaining today, but I'm sure we might see some. He is captaining. I'll just confirm that he is on captaining one of the eight guns. It would appear that he's captaining the Vanguard vessel at the moment. We've also got MC Candleless. I hope I'm saying his name right. Verita and Davy Queen. They're some of the heavy hitters, as you would say, in today's
Indeed,
matches.
indeed. Okay, so it looks like we are live, and my perspective is from the east side, which is the Krakens. And on the opposite side, we have with the yellow ships, that is the Leviathans team on the west. Now, the wind for today's map is coming out of the southwest. So it is moving northeast, which initially does
Yeah,
provide the Leviathans with a little bit more flexibility, a little bit more options and advantage for them to choose where they want to go. Whereas you can see right now, the green ships, the Krakens, are moving to the northwest. That's actually one of my things I was going to predict about where they were going to head in the opening start, because it's really the only direction that they have in terms of the wind being able
yeah.
to get out there and get an early start. Now, I understand, Kieran, that you have a unique perspective on this map because you've practiced on this map with the Krakens. Can you tell me a little bit about how you think this is going to go for them here, what they're going to do in the early game?
Yeah, of course. So we practiced last Tuesday. We had a nice practice run with the KRN, and the 77th joined us as well, our teammates, and it was very interesting. I myself was the admiral for the enemy team, and I wanted to test the KRN, see test their capabilities a little bit, see what they would do under certain stress situations, and maybe just change it up. Maybe just change it up in terms of what we were going to do and how we were going to approach it. We didn't just want to take a head-on fight to them. We wanted to see if we could maybe split the fleet up and take a great shot at their 13 gun almost straight away. And they did really well. They responded well to the tactics that were given to them. At one point, I had the 13 gun charge straight towards them, and they were able to gun the fleet down pretty quickly. So they're seasoned on this map. It um, might seem a little bit weird to say that, but they have this map wrapped around the finger at the moment. They know what they're doing. So I'm I'm excited to see what they're gonna do. And personally, I think this may be a Kraken victory. They've practiced hard, and I know that.
Very nice, very nice. Yeah, I mean, you're right. This is absolutely a huge departure from the design that we've seen in the maps that were played in the preseason. We will see some more of those maps and those variants throughout the season, the first season here. But this is definitely unique. I mean, we see some very narrow passages here on the map, and in
Yeah,
certain areas where only certain types of ships can pass through. So, for example, those narrow passages between the islands are only deep enough to allow gunboats, rocket boats, and rowboats to pass through them. So that kind of makes, in a sense, on the outer edges of this map. Um, or on the islands, I should say, kind of makes it an ambusher's paradise when it
it
comes to that kind of
does.
thing. So it'll be interesting to see the formations as the match progresses. But tell me what you're seeing from the Leviathan side, because it's a little bit different than what we see the Krakens doing here.
Yes, it seems like they were committed to pushing straight down east way, and then sort of made a change and responding to the Kraken and what they're doing. It would seem that their 13 gun is the vanguard vessel at the moment. They're not in range to make any significant damage. The gunboats are circling around with the fleet. I believe that that's one of the better tactics to have is the gunboats. Keep them close, use them as a glass sort of a glass cannon, and just charge them when you need them. Keep them in reserve when you want to keep them. They're there for the offensive and the defensive. So yeah, I think gunboats are a little bit, I guess, underused, underappreciated, but they can make the difference in a battle, especially one like this.
What we have here is quite interesting. We have Leviathans put their 13 gun flagship right in the front there, well positioned to fire all cannons to bring all cannons to bear onto those lead 8 guns from the Krakens here. Now, the interesting thing about this new season, for those of you who are returning viewers and participants of the league, the HPs have changed and kind of the win conditions have changed. You no longer have to
Um,
consider the flagship as as more important than the other ships in terms of win conditions. However, it is a very big force multiplier on the battlefield still. So with that comes some adjustments to the HP. With the HP with the 13 gun has been brought down from 12,000 HP to 10,500, and
yeah,
the 8 guns have seen a marginal increase from 9,000 to 9,250. So not gigantic changes, but really it comes down to now it's more about how you use your ships, holistically speaking, rather than just go gunning in, try to sink that 13 gun and hope for the best after that. So
yeah.
that does present some differences in strategy here, I would assume. Also, the rounds are about 5 minutes longer in order to allow for some of that initial or that additional gameplay that we usually see or would like to see. Some late game pushes to allow for that.
Yeah, you think as well the a change of 1500 HP on the 13 gun, it wouldn't be that significant, but it really is when you're playing on the 13 gun and you're captaining that vessel. It feels a lot more squishier than usual.
So we're getting into what's resembling more of a traditional spiraling or circling
Yeah,
engagement here, which I'll be honest with you, I was not. really expecting that right out the gate. You know, the coming out of the preseason, all of those matches I commentated. I think almost all of the Leviathans matches. I think I did all of them, and what I've observed with that team is their immense ability for adaptability and flexibility. They're usually the aggressive force, but I think what we saw here is that the Krakens did not allow them to get into a comfortable position.
No.
Um, so they kept moving around to the west, and the Leviathans, I don't want to say were forced, but made the decision to push out towards them from the northeast side. Now they have the wind,
Yeah,
and
their 13 gun is taking a beating right now, I admit.
that's what I'm saying though. Like the
Wow.
however, if we look at the scoreboards at the top of the screen, we can see one of those eight guns is quite heavily damaged and may go down at any moment now.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
So with the the unorthodox tactics that I was just speaking about, we're seeing I talked a lot about that last season or in the preseason, but what we're seeing here is a reminder, a message being sent that the X were essentially the at the forefront. They were the pioneers of this kind of gameplay.
Yeah, they're they're
Just going
they're
back to the
supposed to be
basics, man.
reckoned with, aren't they?
Yeah, and this is what I'm worried about because like if we look back at the final match between the Royal Blackfeet and the Krakens,
Yeah.
they ended up getting split up a little bit in I wouldn't call this split up, but their formation is exactly not where you want to be. Like you're about to get raked from the rear, and they don't seem to be able to do much
No.
about it right now.
No, it
However,
seems like they've found themselves in a similar position where they're a little bit all over the place. Not so much expected really. I thought they would get the favouring from being on the having the distance between the island and the Leviathans was sort of close to it. I thought that would cause a little bit of a disarray, but it seems to have played to the Leviathans' advantage right now.
yeah, I just want to point out there that just about 15 seconds ago, the flagship for the Krakens just went down, unfortunately. So, uh,
Ah,
you know, I thought it was going to go a little bit differently when I saw both teams starting to go in a circle. In that scenario, you do not want to end up with the enemy on your tail.
no,
And for whatever reason, the Krakens decided, no, I'm going to hold, and we're going to try to. I'll be honest with you, I couldn't really I can't formulate a reason in my mind why they would want to do that. But now we see this kind of reversal here in a way where the Krakens are coming up, doing the same thing that the Leviathans just did to them and firing into the rear. But
yeah,
is this enough? I don't know. We still have four ships up on the Krakens. They have they still have eight guns. Eight guns are very flexible. They can do a lot,
they are.
and
They're quick on the move, aren't they, as well?
they
It gives
really
them
are.
that edge on really getting round, utilizing the wind when they need to. I think that with losing their flagship, it really brings their guns down and that ability to hit those shots per minute. And I think that's really what it's about right now is utilizing those people that can make the consistent shots. And it just seems like they're not utilizing every ship they can right now. I know they've got another eight gun that's circling around, potentially coming in to attack, but they're outnumbered at the moment. So maybe the
Well,
maybe the Kraken can change that.
one of the things we do see happening here is that the gunboats from the Krakens are laying into that uh, the 13 gun, and a mast just
Yeah,
went down there.
yeah,
Let's
it
get a
has.
close in on
Yeah,
that. So I can't tell immediately if that was through a boarding action. There is a lot of small boats there. If we can get a nice little close up in there, that would be good to see if there's any boarding action happening there. But that's pretty significant, for your one of your largest ships. The concern I have here is that this is a very close combat situation where historically, this is not the strength of. the Krakens, they certainly can hold their own and brawl for sure. But this is kind of a situation where I've seen more often than not the Leviathans have managed to come out successful with this. So there are rowboats out and about. There are three Kraken's ships that are kind of caged in at this point,
They
which is
are.
really, really not good place to
It's a
be.
bit of a scary blockade, that isn't it? Surrounded by the Leviathans.
Here's the thing, though. I'm gonna get in a little bit closer on this Leviathan's. Oh, there it is. That flagship just went down. I was about to say they're losing a lot of cannons on that side, so
Yeah,
it's not over yet.
it's not. It's they've got an 8 gun in the background, ready to do some more damage on their on one of their 8 guns. And I mean, I think right now the Leviathans are just focusing on taking down whichever ships they can. There's less guns on the board. I can see some rowboats that are being deployed, potentially over to a Leviathan ship, and they have another 8 gun that's just gone down as well. How many boats is it? How many ships does that leave on the board for the KraKRNs right now?
Well, right now we're looking at their flagship and one eight gun down, and another one shortly going down. They've only lost one gunboat so far, so it's not the end of the world. But as we
Yeah,
know, these gunboats, the small boats, do not matter in terms of the overall
they
uh,
don't.
victory conditions. So if you're looking at that, the number of ships up on the screen, pay only attention to the larger ones, the capital ships, and the KRN have to do something to break out of here. I really liked what Amjugan did at the beginning of their final match against I think it was against the Jackals. Uh, in the preseason, they had used their Amjugan had taken personal initiative to push forward and disrupt two enemy gunboats by kind of pushing them out of rotation, preventing them from firing on anything really at that point. And it seems that the Karen are doing just that. Look against that island there. Is it enough? It might be too little, too late at this point, but we'll have to wait and see.
Well, it seems like they want to get out of the mess they're in right now. And although they don't count towards any points or weights in that regard, the gunboats can be so deadly. It's nice to see them being utilized so much at the moment. I There's a lot of kills on the board at the moment, and yeah, I think the Kraken do need to try and swiftly move out of there and sort of compose themselves a little bit. They can still turn this around. It's not completely over yet. The Leviathans are just pumping out those round shots.
Yeah, it will be very difficult. I do agree with you there. They had stopped their sales there for about a minute. I don't know why they did that, which obviously is taking them way longer to get out of there, and almost too little, too late. Off to the east, they have one of their supporting eight guns coming in now. It took a long time for them to get around that island because they were going against the wind for a lot of that.
Yeah,
So I just it far be it for me. I tend to reserve my judgment. And there goes that lead eight gun from the Krakens. Unfortunately, I tend to reverse my judgment on who's going to win the match until at least 80% the way through. The reason being is sometimes these teams will have their David versus Goliath moment where they're able to become the
yes,
victors in situations where many of us would have thought otherwise. Um, Coming into the match, I was going to give the edge to the Leviathans just since we've seen how adaptable they are and being able to take less than ideal situations and turn it into victory. Um, this one, unfortunately, seems a little bit more clear cut in their favor. Um, it's been about 5 months since we've seen these two teams fight against each other, and at that time, it essentially, disappointingly, that match had turned into what it was essentially a line battle. But
yeah,
the Krakens did quite well. They have above average skilled crews. They
they
they have
do.
They have usually people captaining their ships that know what they're doing. They know pacing, and they did quite well. It actually came sort of close in that match. It was they whittled down the Leviathans to just being a two ship advantage over their final eight gun in that match. So it was close. This seems less so, but as we can see, the two Krakens eight guns off to the northwest are, or sorry, northeast are looking to regroup, and it seems that not a whole lot can be done by the Leviathans right now to chase them. They would have the wind moving northeast, so I assume they want to reform and continue moving. And just as I
Yeah,
say that, we see them doing that.
they can still mount a very capable offense. It's just getting that cohesion with the other eight gun and seeing if you have the guns to bear. And yeah, it would seem the Leviathans are onto it. They've got the smell of blood and they want to take them down.
So, Kieran, last week you were the victor of the Marines versus Jackals of the Baltic Sea match.
Yeah.
Um, Obviously, you're the admiral in this situation. What would you want to be doing if you're the Krakens to have any sort of chance to win here?
Well, it's almost like asking the impossible. No, I believe that what I would do is try and reform with my ship, just as it seems like the Krakens are doing. It's just having more guns there with you, and you want to be scoring. You want to be seeing how much damage you can do. This is a moment where I like to emphasize that Kraken are down right now, but they're not out, so they can still do something. It's never completely over until it's over.
Yeah, I agree. You definitely let your intrusive thoughts win you there on the first one when I first asked the question, but you checked yourself. So, uh, yes, it looks like they're going for what we see a lot of teams do. They roll up against the walls and just have a shooting match, and
Yeah,
it seems that that tends to help prolong the match as long as they're prioritizing their targets. um, Gives them a fighting chance. You know, they have not managed to lose any of the rocket boats yet. I don't know if they've used any of them, but the rocket boats are pretty interesting because they allow up to two carpenters on them, and one of the eight guns from the Leviathans, the one that's actually towards the rear, has lost its front mast as well. So it's kind of out for the count, but it
yeah.
is got cannons, and you can see it's very much doing some damage out there.
And the Krakens have.
Unfortunately,
Sorry.
go ahead, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say the Krakens have some really great gunners on their ship, so I would be putting the best gunners on whichever cannons I can and just utilizing them for their accuracy, for their speed. Um, and they're usually the type that will get destroy cannons on the enemy team's ships as well. I know they love to do that. Um, so yeah,
Yeah.
it's great.
Yeah, it's not great, as you said. Right now, for whatever reason, that eight gun that has just sunk on the Kraken side decided to ram itself into the wall, which unfortunately put it into a raking position from
Yes.
Leviathans. This is um, this is honestly a very clean cut match in terms of how the Leviathans employed their strategy. I don't think it was anything too crazy. It's honestly what my team, the SCP-38, did several times in the XNL, which was run earlier last year as a prelude to the preseason of the NSL.
Yeah.
Um, I'm gonna have to go ahead and call this one in the favor of the Leviathans. Personally, those of you who've watched the commentation for me before know how reluctant I am to do that right off the bat. But when I see a situation like this, um, just looking at the ship HP, the Leviathans just have really not taken the kind of damage that the Krakens needed to put out in order to have any sort of real competitive fighting chance here.
Yeah, I was in terms of that our game last week, I believe we lost the majority of our gunboats and rocket boats pretty pretty swiftly, but they inflict damage, and I would have liked to see potentially some more action from the gunboats and rocket boats. Um,
Now, from the perspective of the Leviathans, this map, like, I guess they do have. I shouldn't say any one team has any particular advantage, given that these maps are provided to us way in advance to practice. You, from your initial outset, said, "Hey, you thought the Krakens were going to have the leg up on this one." Do you think that the Leviathans uh, just are more familiar with the map, or do you think it just really comes down to skill and or the decision making from the admiral of the Krakens here?
um, I think that it's very, very, very easy to lose your composure very early on as well in terms of the battle and the strategies that you want to deploy. And it would seem that even from the offset, there was a little bit of not a skill gap. I don't want to say that, but it felt like the Leviathans were coming into it with a goal, whereas we saw the Krakens, they were a little bit out of composition quite early on, which is not it's not what you want to see from a team. Is you want your ships to be in a fighting position very
Yeah,
quickly.
The
and we
British
see
are
there it is.
victorious.
It's game over.
It is.
Um, all
Wow.
right, let's take a look at the scoreboard here. 37,561 on the Leviathans versus 15,059 here. Um, Tough pill to swallow if you're the KRN. Kieran, you want to give me an overall summary of how you're feeling about this match? I know I started to pick at you there right at the end. Um,
Yeah.
just before our admirals come in here, we move on to the questions.
It it really shows the Leviathans and their skill. Even down from the captain to the gunner, they've got the skill all round, and they displayed that in the preseason. And obviously, with their opening game now, their skill hasn't changed. If anything, it's gotten better.
Yeah, that was the thing I had wondered about the most as well. Here is that, given that I consider the Leviathans the best group for naval and holdfast, but I also consider the Krakens uh, the second best. They're
Yeah,
second only to the in my opinion to the Leviathans, who are known as the X in the greater community here. So, is this a bit of a surprise to see um, today? I don't know. I mean, given that the map is new, um, there definitely was a lot that could have happened here. So I'll give you an example. With regard to this map in particular, I had expected more opportunities for the fleets to kind of like maybe split their ships up a little bit and not go all in as we saw them do.
yeah,
Um, we didn't really see that happen here. And we did see some of those side channels being utilized by the smaller boats, um, but that was more of like a retreat tactic. A lot of that combat was just straight on in the open, not typically what you would see all of the time in all the preseason matches. And people are like, why is this guy going on about the preseason? Well, because so many matches happened in the preseason, and that's where we
yeah,
really saw a lot of these teams cut their teeth and become better. Like we saw the Jackals rebuild their team over the break. Um, we've seen other teams like the Sea Wolves of the past, the SCP-38, who early on in the preseason were very kind of like known to be the ones who try different things. They get into brawls. They like to do interesting things and make for good television. Um, but this is a league where you want to win, and the X or the Leviathans absolutely showed that they don't need to do anything crazy. They can stick with the basics and beat you that way. If you can't defend against the basics, like, yeah, unfortunately, it seems that over time, the maybe it's the months of in between the two seasons that maybe gave them some more confidence that they could try some different things, but it didn't seem to work out that way today. And I think partly, um, I do wonder, and I will ask about that training that you did with them on this very same map, about what they would where they were going with that and what they had in mind, because I could not see it, unfortunately, myself. Did you have any final remarks on overall, Kieran's, before we move on to the interviews?
No, I think you summed it up perfectly. And I was going to add, I want to ask the same thing in regards to the training. Was it helpful?
Yeah, I mean,
So
because like we think about some of the other teams that we talked about, the VOD Coalition, especially in the preseason, they, some of these teams did put a very big effort into training, and it slowly but surely did help them. Um, Anyways, we do have the Admiral here of the Leviathans, Lemerck. Uh, Welcome.
Thank you.
Congratulations, sir.
Thank you very much.
Do you want to take us through your overall thoughts about this match and the pacing and what you expected from the Krakens coming in?
Yeah. Let me gather my thoughts here for a minute. I think, when it came to what we were planning for, it was very much about the opening move. If we look at this very new map and very interesting map, it's kind of broken into quadrants with that island group in the middle. And so they kind of went where we expected, where we would have gone if we were in their position, right? And that is going up towards that. I guess if you're looking at it in the way that it's displayed in the Discord, that would be the sort of northeast quadrant, right? Which is where they had half wind. We were fortunate enough to have good wind this round. And so, we knew that they probably weren't going to come out of their spawn and turn left, turn to their port, because that would be dead against the wind. And
Right.
we were originally, going to leave our spawn and head straight towards those middle islands and keep our options open to be able to just dart in one direction or the other. But we saw that they were going towards the north to start off with, so we began to commit ourselves to the north. However, when they saw us commit ourselves to the north, then they started to go against the wind. Going against the wind, I felt that we were always going to win a race against the wind. So then I rerouted. I'm sure you saw that like weird snake that we did in the beginning
Yeah.
to not meet them in a line battle. I didn't want a line battle today. The KRN are extremely good cannoneers. They have very capable captains. They are a very strong team. And in a line battle, last time we were lucky. We had some positioning that we had a little bit better positioning, I think, in our line than they ended up having at sort of the end of our last battle with them, but it was pretty close. And I really didn't want to have another show of that. I wanted to do a little bit of outmaneuvering today. And luckily the wind was in our favor to do that. When they started going against the wind, thinking that we were going to go up to that north, we just turned completely around. This is one of the reasons that we wanted to keep my 13 gun at the rear of the line, which is that because if we did need to switch things around, like we have this maneuver we call a flip, where we just completely turn the entire fleet around on the spot, and the last ship becomes the front ship, and the front ship becomes the last ship. And so I would have the opportunity to cut in front of the ships and become the lead ship, which is what I ended up doing. And it worked for us because we got to keep being against, we had the win to our advantage, and we held it to our advantage when they tried to get it to their advantage. I think that's the bottom line of how the strategy played out for us. And then from that point, we could get behind their lines. They cross past us, we cross past them, and then we could hook around to behind them and try and get that really good angle. Put some of their lead ships out of range of my flagship, and it gave my flagship a lot of time to do its work without having too much pressure on it at any one given time, and that ended up working out for us.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And Kieran's and I had been looking at that right in the beginning. We were wondering, why is this guy pushing his 13 gun right up in the front? And then we saw what was occurring there. But I think it's very good, very aptly said how you knew the wind was only going one direction favorably for them, so you could adequately plan where they were going to go. And actually, in the pre-battle, that's what Kieran and I had predicted as well. So, um, very well done. Thank you for the explanation. Um, was there anything that surprised you about what they were doing today that perhaps maybe didn't work out all the way for them, but you thought, oh, maybe that's cool. We might have had to watch out for that had the circumstances been different.
I think the moments in which I felt that I had to change my strategy and adapt is, like I had said earlier, when we both seemed to be going north, and then they decided, okay, no, we're going to go. Maybe they're going to go south because we're going north. And so we adjusted, and they kind of counter adjusted. So the beginning was just like it was us adjusting them, like them making a move, us adjusting to that move, them adjusting to our move, us adjusting to their move, and then they held the course, right? And then we passed each other, and we did that, basically what you saw in the latter half of the battle. So those moments to me were the moments where I had to reorient and change plans, because this was definitely not the way that the plan was supposed to go. This was not what we were intending to do. We figured that they would go north, and that what we would do is just kind of rush to that gap in the north of the two islands, those two curved islands at the top.
Yeah.
There's a gap between them, and we were going to try and block that gap, and then just kind of put a line right there, and so that they would crash into the line. They saw that, and then they adjusted, we adjusted, they adjusted, we adjusted, and so those moments, those were the tense moments for us. What was going to be their adjustment counter to our adjustment counter? And eventually we got to a situation where I felt comfortable maintaining course, and that's where the battle played out.
Yeah, but it was very tit for tat, and I've said this several times before on the cast. It seems to me that the composure of your crews in close quarters, they don't lose their cool, they're calm, collected, and they get out of situations, and that's what ultimately leads you guys to victories a lot of the time.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm extremely proud of our captains and crews today. They are absolutely calm under fire, and they know, at certain points in the battle, I can just say, Captain, okay, individual action, do whatever you want, and they will then stop thinking, fleet think, and they will think ship think, and then they will just go into that mode, and they will block ships, they will do whatever they have to do, and it's really nice to just be able to, to either have a strong formation that's following exactly my orders, or being able to just release a captain and know that he has been chosen as a captain because he's got a certain level of genius on the wheel, and that he, if left to his own devices, will execute whatever he thinks is best, and it's usually a very good move, and I don't have to micromanage. So I was very lucky. I definitely want to thank the captains. The crews were amazing today. And obviously, of course, I want to thank my opponents for the KRN for a really, really, really good battle, and really making me second guess myself there in the beginning. And I did not think this is where the battle was going to go. And the KRN are one of the great naval powers of Holdfast, and it was our delight to fight against them today, and they have our great respect.
Awesome, excellent. Well, thank you for your
Mhm.
your thoughts and comments, Lemerk. Speaking of your opponents, the Krakens, one of the teams I consider once again the premier naval force, second only to the to the Krakens, at least so far as we see in the stats. For now, we'll see how that continues throughout the season. We have Percy and Killer Bow Guy from the Krakens here. Welcome, guys.
Thank you.
Who's are
Hello.
both of you going to be participating in this, or are you
Yeah, I
leaving
think
it to
it.
one
Yeah.
particular person? Okay, well, I'll have you guys just briefly explain, how what was your strategy coming into the match? How do you feel about it? And you know, go from there.
Do you want to start
Well,
that, Killer?
yeah, I'll start. Middling was our admiral, so we're kind of talking in his behalf and me as team manager. So at the start, the wind was really not in our favor. So we had to try and do some creative thinking with the wind. So the idea kind of was that we would try to stop Lemerk's fleet with our 13 and our 8 gun in the back. Which you saw, we tried to stop them, but they had the wind advantage, so they outmaneuvered us there. And the 8 guns were supposed to kind of try and get behind them, so we kind of tried to get them from all sides so they wouldn't know where to block. There were Kraken ships everywhere. But yeah, the wind really did not favor us, and when Lemerk took that course through the islands, it kind of went. It became really difficult with the wind direction we had.
Was there any point where you considered continuing going north west into that northern passage? Lemerk just talked about how he'd expected you guys to go the direction that you did, but then initially you turned towards more to the center, and he had to figure out what to do from there rather than continuing north on his own path, which was his original plan. Were you guys ever considering going up through there?
I think we generally wanted to try and hold the center of the map as best as we could. We had sort of an idea of trying to essentially try and use the sort of center area as a place to trap and box in the fleet that we were against today, and sort of keep them in that area, and just like Killer was saying, kind of make sure we have kind of angles from all sides to be able to focus fire down a specific ship of our choice. Unfortunately, today it didn't kind of work out with the position that we quite wanted. There was a very
We
aggressive
tried
push.
something in a earlier battle, and it worked in our favor. But it always depends on where the enemy fleet goes, and the way X took their the engagement to, and the wind we had, it didn't work out. Would they sail differently if we had different wind? It could, yeah, probably end up different. But with the course they took and with the wind we had, it just fell apart.
And with the sort of the extra sort of, as Lemerck was saying, sort of the second guessing between both, I think, leaderships on both sides, whether what they wanted to do was going to be the right thing, the wrong thing, adjustments here, adjustments there. It kind of just, I think maybe we didn't adjust enough in one of those actions that caused them to be able to get the turnaround. And I think we managed to give a good account on the gunnery into the 13 gun as it was coming around.
I certainly think so, yeah.
But obviously, then you have the rest of the entire fleet coming around behind it, and unfortunately, Killer on our 13 here just he got 4 or 5 ships just pelting straight into him while we were trying to return fire on the capital ship. It was just too much.
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty interesting because you talked about your strategy here, and knowing the wind being the direction it is in the pre-battle portion of the stream here. Kieran's had told me about his some of his practice sessions with you guys, and I was thought, oh, that's very interesting. It's very smart actually to set up the conditions of the practice the way it's supposed to be in the actual match and go from there. So it doesn't always work out, but great to see you guys trying. It's definitely one of the most unique maps we've seen so far. I was very excited to see what was going to go on today. For me, yeah, the turning point did seem like when you guys had finally done that kind of turnaround, and then they were back on the northeast. Unfortunately, they had the wind, so
Yeah.
made it very difficult for you guys. But I think you did what you could. Saw a lot of masts fall down on the Leviathan ships today, so that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, that's true. We did get the heck mass out of us.
It
There's no
was one
question
of
about it.
the ideas that came in one of our practices. I think it was actually KraKRNs when he was leading an opposing fleet against us. They decided to try and drop masts, one of our masts, around one of the islands. So when we didn't have necessarily clear and perfect shots.
So
Did-
those were chain shots that you guys were lobbing at us
Yeah.
while over the
So
islands,
in a
right?
practice
Yeah.
match, the first round took out both mast and our 13 gun. We still won that round, but yeah, they took it out very quickly. So the second round we did, and the training map, I thought like, hey, they are hiding behind an island.
Yeah, we were definitely at the
I-
beginning of our engagement. We were hiding. We wanted to just like fire at that lead ship of yours, so I just kept hiding behind the island, and I saw
So
you
our,
guys.
our
throwing stuff
thinking
over.
was like, if they're hiding behind the island, why lob shots over if we can maybe try to take out a mast?
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
it worked. That was great.
Well, we tried to slow them down, obviously, because we knew the wind was against them. So if we try and do that down, it would give our other ships the opportunity to try it and get
Mhm.
something. But unfortunately, we didn't necessarily get enough rounds of chain shot into the ships that we wanted to try and slow down the most. Obviously, if we tried to slow down the front ship, that would slow down the entire fleet in succession and force the Merc's fleet to be able to reposition themselves. But
It's not a bad strategy. Yeah.
it's
Not a
one
bad
of those
strategy at
things.
all.
It comes down to the day, and unfortunately, this day was not our day. But
Yeah,
there's
those are
long
very,
seasons.
very challenging shots to make. So
Yeah.
you guys, that's awesome.
But I'm still proud of the match, our team, what they did. And we also have a lot of newer captains and a lot of newer gunners that haven't even did an NSL before. So seeing them perform for the first time, I'm really proud, and we can only grow from here.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is the first time that we've managed to bring a very full complement. I think we only the mercenary pool was very much in the Merc's hands today, so it was nice to see
Yeah.
the very large.
Would you
know,
guys bring like 40 guys today?
we did bring 40
Yeah.
people, and we just
That's-
wanted
that's
to
a
try
lot.
and see how that was going to play out. And I don't think as a regiment, both KRA, KRN, as KraKRNs, we could have asked for a better lot of people to come into a match like this with. And I think, definitely over the next coming weeks, once we get our next few matches underway, there's going to be a lot of difference that's gonna hopefully come from that. If we showed this today against a very strong, very it's considered some of the strongest out there, I can't wait to see what the rest of the season's coming up with.
I concur
Absolutely.
completely. I think it's going to be great to see you guys continue to develop, especially if you brought on a lot of new players. That's so exciting. Actually, I love to hear that.
I mean, myself only have been captaining for a year and a half as well, so I'm fairly new to this even.
Awesome.
And so a lot of newer people in the Kraken team.
Well, we look forward to seeing more out of you guys and seeing how your new members, or I shouldn't say new members, but newly acquainted members to the NSL are going to develop with the league going forward. It's a long season. It's 9 months. We're just getting started, baby. I'm going to
Absolutely.
let KraKRNs finish off our interview portion here, and then we can move along to our conclusions.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you, Amit. I just want to say a massive congrats to Lemerck and the team. Leviathans, you guys were spectacular to watch. And a greater commiserations to the Kraken. It feels like, you guys did practice for this, and I think it's not an initiative that every team will take, but it's definitely an admirable one. And it was nice to see two giants go against one another. I do have a question for Lemerck. Was there at any point during the match where you was almost certain on your victory, that you were almost like had it in the bag, so to speak?
I think the first moment that I felt that we were heading towards the victory is when I realized that I was going to get pretty far behind their 13 gun and that their lead 8 guns were out of range of my 13 gun.
Yeah.
So that moment where I got hit almost the whole time that I was trying to cross behind their 13 gun. Props to I think it's Killer. You were on the 13.
Yeah, I was on a 13.
Yeah, props to you for keeping rotation the entire time. For as long as could ever be asked for of a captain. But when I noticed that their, I think, front like 2 or 3 8 guns were lobbing shots and still falling short of my 13 gun, whereas I had my whole fleet still in good coordination, that's when I knew. And then, of course, my flagship sunk, and then I actually got a chance to look at the HP totals, and that's the other moment that I was pretty sure we were going to come away with this with a pretty big win.
Yeah, it was. I think you summed it up really well. Is that it's almost like the beginning of a fencing round at the beginning, where you
Yeah.
were going this way or that way, and you weren't sure which way to go, but you knew that you were gonna counter what the Kraken were doing. And it's nice to see, and almost like you want an insight into your mind at the time, Lemerck, what you're thinking when they're deciding to go south or southeast or southwest, and you're gonna want to put your fleet in a position to just rain hell on them. And the islands in the middle, I think some people would think that they're not going to be that significant. They're not going to be used, but I mean, they are well used. And in the match today, the islands in the middle, they worked in your favor a little bit, especially at the start when the Krakens, they got a little bit let's say, a little bit confused. The fleet moved out of shape, and it really gave you that advantage initially to start pouring shots on them. And I wouldn't say it's any fault of Percy's or even the flagship. I think it was just wrong time, wrong place type of deal. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, there's too many variables at play to say, this won't happen and that won't happen. But
I really like the fencing analogy, and I think that's true. It's like a lot of feints and counter feints before we actually start trying to stab
yeah,
each other. And I have to tell you, going into this battle, I really had no intention of going into those middle islands. In fact, I think, in probably as much as anybody who looks at that map thought, if I go in the middle of the islands, I'm gonna not have a lot of options in the middle of that
exactly.
island. So I was very afraid of those central islands right until the moment that I decided to go into them, and then I was really happy to have them, because once you're in there, you're like in this little eggshell. You're covered from a lot of angles, and so I wanted I think you probably saw at the beginning, my flagship, now at the lead of the line, has a angle of attack on their lead ship, which was an 8 gun, and I kept just stopping and then creeping forward and stopping and creeping forward, and that whole point there is to just put as much damage onto that under their lead ship with my flagship and the second ship, while they're lobbing shots over the islands. Little did I know that they were demasting me at the time. And so those it ended up being a really exciting to use the islands. I had a lot of fun playing with the islands today in ways that, again, like you said, I really did not expect to be doing at all.
It's a nice map, and
And
I
you
love.
and you can just see again that wind is way more a factor in NSL than during normal naval.
Mm.
Yeah, and I think it's good that you get that information previous because, like you guys did, Percy and Killer, you practiced with the wind, you practice against the wind, and it gave you that opportunity to see what you can do. And we the first time, I'm quite proud that we went in there to demast you guys, and you actually utilized that in the match. So it's nice that you came away with from that training slash exercise with some knowledge of something and an idea on what you wanted to do. And you've got to be very skilled, as Lamerck said earlier. You've got to be very skilled to utilize the chain shots between the islands, during the islands, and it was really nice to see. So really well done there.
Okay, awesome, guys. Thank you very much for coming over here and telling us your side. Um, we'll catch up with the admirals later, but right now I'd like to move on to having a small little round table with our crew of uh, our camera operators, and so sometimes we don't see everything. We may miss things that are happening during the match. I'd like to open the floor right now to Piet, Chewy, Lucius, whatever you guys saw today. Go ahead, let us know.
Well, today I will
Uh,
not say too much, as I do not feel well. So
that's
just,
no worries, sir.
mhm. Just so I could say, we could say that these islands are really a potential to divide enemy fleet. It's the all that we just could say about it is that the KraKRN fleet was divided by the very island that could provide defense but also offensive capabilities.
Yeah, exactly.
We
Yeah,
did
you're
see, yeah, a little bit of division on the Kraken's part there. One of their 8 guns was not able to assist for quite some time in that engagement, where their other 8 guns were trapped essentially by the Leviathans in that against the northeast side of the islands there. Um, yeah, Lucius, what were you saying just now?
Something similar to what he was saying just a moment ago. I definitely do believe a lot of these matches for the season are going to be determined by how well these captains can maneuver in these islands. Just because we got a large selection of different maps and there's a lot of maneuverability into it, and I believe that maneuverability was the real make or break here, as you saw throughout the match. That's just my personal opinion, because early on in the match, it was the Leviathans, correct, that got the backs.
Yeah, they well initially the Krakens were doing what they could to get around the rear of the Leviathans who were starting out on the west side, but that wind advantage that they had, the Leviathans were able to, just come in and just sweep around the rear of the Kraken's formation. They did not seem to do well in adjustment to that.
Yeah, I believe just like working with the wind and the islands and really having those individual captain skills in terms of maneuvering will definitely help uh, all the teams if they're able to really sort that out and figure out what they can do as individual captains rather as a crew. Because if one captain can break enemy fleet's line or they can disrupt them or anything like that, really, it can absolutely change the game completely.
I mean, we saw something similar to that. I don't know about completely changing the game, but in the Leviathan's final match of the preseason, Amjugan, of his own accord, apparently took his 8 gun ship and smashed it right in between two of the enemy's ships, and pinned one of them and knocking both of them out of rotation, not being able to fire at all. And so, yeah, I mean, that obviously messed up that enemy's team ability to respond to something like that. Um, but I had hoped to see something like that today from the Krakens. Making a bad situation, having something, or just in a way being able to break out of their cornered situation a little bit sooner. And they did eventually attempt to do that. They did push one of the enemy ships out of the way. Um, it may have been too late at that point. Um,
Yeah. I just want to ask, Amit, did we confirm whether it was a carpenter or a chain shot from one of the gunboats that managed to take down one of the masts on the
the
8 gun?
mass on. So I had asked or had wondered about that during the match. From what it sounds like, it seems that it was more done through chain shot. There were some gunboats that were a little bit closer to those ships, and I'm not 100% certain that there were boarding actions. Um, but
Yeah,
we still have Killer in the channel with us here, though. I'm curious to know if that was something that you're aware of.
What?
The couple of masts that went down on the Leviathan ships, we just heard from you guys about how chain shots were being used, but we're wondering if a certain carpenter of yours in the KRN has had managed to get onto one of the Leviathan ships and
I'm
start
unsure
chipping
because
away.
my ship was down, so I joined the boarding
If
Oh,
I
I
if
only
I
at
see.
this
if I can
moment.
help, I
For
did
sure.
hear. I've heard that it was a combination of both that was responsible. So that we're talking
Probably.
about chain shots, and we did have carpenters on our ships that were actually hitting the masts as well.
Maybe some chain shots damaged the mast, and then when the
Mhm.
explosion took it out, I'm unsure. I didn't see it happen at the moment.
Yeah, that's what I've heard from
Yeah,
my crew and also from some of the correspondents and director.
I will say
the
that it happened
carpenters.
very quickly. So, in rapid succession, these things started to happen on the ships. It was a very, very rapidly progressing match. So I understand but thank you for that insight. Sorry. Kieran's, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to mention that how important some of the carpenters can be in this type of league. They really offer something unique in terms of jumping on a rowboat, going over to an enemy ship, and just completely demassing it can make all the difference. And we have some, I would say, people that main carpenters on both the KRN and the Leviathan. So it would be good to see some replays, see what damage was done later on. That was all I wanted to mention. Is there any particular part of the map that you favored over the others, Lemerk? Would you, if you was going to do a rematch, is there anything different you would do?
Oh, gosh. If I did it again, I definitely want to play this map on the other side of things with more negative wind,
Yeah,
because there is also a lot to be said. And one of the things that we had considered may happen because of the tougher wind conditions on the enemy team. Because like my practice is not usually my side. I actually will try to go on the other side and pilot and game out their openings.
yeah,
And so, one of the ones that I thought I would be interested in trying would be to go just stay outside of the outer ring. So let the enemy have the center, and then just go very slowly. Like, because if you're on the outer ring, you could go dead against the wind, and you're not really going to get harassed very
no,
hard, because the enemy is probably never going to think that you would go that way. So they're probably going to head north
Yeah.
to start off with, and then have to reorient. And so, I think we talk a lot about the wind today, and I think it was a really important factor. Um, but every wind condition is just another kit of tools, right? That you have, and you have to just make sure that you choose the right one. And I think in this, when you have bad wind, you cannot think from an aggressive mindset. You have to think from a defensive mindset. Okay, how do I lure them to come to me into a position where we turn the tables around? And I think what we're seeing all the admirals learn over time as they play in bad wind is that, like, any aggressive thought, because that's what we all want to do as admirals. We want to come out, we want to blitz out from our spawn zone, we want to command central parts of the map, we want to set up offensive positions. So it's a very offensive minded metagame that we're all working under here, and the admirals who continue to develop their defensive strategies in bad wind are the ones who are going to start seeing them turning the tables on their opponents. And I want the opportunity to do that. I am looking forward to it. And I also have seen it from all the teams towards the end of last season. Some of the teams were also starting to do things like that. And so, thinking of different parts, like as I think if I go back to, because I didn't really answer your question, I'm sorry about that. If I go back to
Sorry.
my perspective from my starting spawn position with my wind, it would be, I would want to have tried to do a starboard turn out and try and go into that half wind that I had to the south and see what I could make of that. That would have been a fun thing. I eventually kind of got to do that anyway, but I didn't go as deep downwind or upwind, I think it is, upwind as I wanted to.
Yeah, and I think I agree with you in the sense that I think most admirals and most players, most captains, they would want to stick on the outer rim of those islands, and it gives you that competitive edge, and you're not having to worry. But then on the other side of the coin is you could have a fleet like yours, run straight through the middle, get a nasty ambush, and then just start raking your ships.
Yeah,
I want
I,
to
I
ask Percy and Killer, sorry,
oh,
Killer,
sorry.
just while I ask the same question to Lemerk is if you was to do a rematch against the same team, and I guess this would be a two-part question as well. Against the same team, how would you do things different? And then against another team, maybe the Jackals or the Marines, how would you do things then on the same map?
I don't think necessarily we sort of prepare for each match as it comes. So we're maybe not necessarily looking straight into our next match as of yet, but certainly for this match, I think the thing we wanted to do was contest space and restrict as much as possible what Lemurk was able to do with his X fleet. I think was the main idea.
Yeah,
And I think potentially in that we overstretched, as sort of was alluded to along the panel today. We had both our sort of our forward front of the fleet, while they had angles. For the most part, once the wind had come around behind us, we didn't have much left except for long call shots. So maybe staggering ourselves in a line that would have blocked the sort of the approach and the encroachment that Limerick wanted to do in our sort of backspace, so to speak,
yeah.
would have been the I guess my sort of take on how I would have tried to defend against it. Maybe I don't know if
I
you agree
like
with that,
that.
Killer, or if anything you would have changed yourself, Killer, or not.
No, I probably would have done the same things, but the idea of what we would try to execute is that we were hoping X would take full advantage of the win, be as aggressive as they could, because they know we didn't have that option. And that's when we would cut them off guard and block them, but then they took a bit of a different win, and then the whole fencing thing happened.
Yeah, I do like that, Percy, that you was, let's say, Lemerck is the Magnus Carlsen of the chess world, and you're looking for him to make a blunder early on, and you're doing what you can to sort of make him or fall into that blunder and that trap. And I think that's what you've got to do when you go against a team like the Leviathans, is you've got to force them into a certain position where it's going to be more favorable for you, because tackling them head on, it's suicide. Let's be honest. So, yeah, I
It's
agree with you there.
it's
That's a
definitely
nice
something we
outcome.
learned from the preseason, is that when we sort of faced a disadvantage such as the win like we had today, we gave up pretty much the whole map in terms of space, and then we were pressed into a corner in the
Yeah,
preseason against in the Leviathans, and we know that in that scenario, I think we maybe put off a longer display in that, but I think it was also that thing of, I don't think we had the opportunity to try and turn it. And I think if we had the opportunity in this instance with the closing down of space to try and even it out, I think we just had to stagger ourselves maybe a bit more, so that we had maybe an arc of fire that we didn't necessarily quite get in the angle, because we still wanted to try and turn around and get something back on them. But by that
yeah,
point, they had already used their wind to get out of the position we wanted to be in, and then it left, Killer and I are then at the back, trying our best to hold down the fort. It's one of
It
those.
was a shame.
Yeah, there were some good calls made, but maybe some calls too late or just the wrong direction because of wind, and that's kind of what screwed us over at the end.
I remember halfway through the match, I had no cannons on my port side, and I was trying my best to try and get myself to turn on the starboard side, and I was not getting any opportunity to do so as one of the surviving ships. So when I finally got to near the end of the match, as one of the last ones, I finally was
Yeah.
able to bring all my starboard side to bear, but that's all I had. It was very tragic. But
Well,
we tried to even it out as best as we could and take out as many cannons with the cannons we had left.
But hey, I mean, it sounds like just listening back to this, you guys, at least in retrospect, are seeing, how much fun you really had with it. And there's plenty of fun to be had throughout the season. We are getting a little bit long here. We've been live for about an hour, just over an hour and 10 minutes. I'm going to close it out. If there's any final remarks from you, KraKRNs, you may go ahead now, and then I'll take us out.
No, I've said everything I want to say. I just want to say that it's still very early in the season, so there's loads more exciting things to come. So yeah, thank you everyone.
Awesome. Yes, and then I appreciate the admirals sticking on for the encore interviews here. We did have some questions in the Twitch chat, which I'll be honest with you, I haven't really paid much attention to before. So thank you, KraKRNs, for being observant of that, and thank you for the correspondents who lent their time to come out and show their camera angles and whatnot. And thank you to the viewers as well. We do this all for you guys. Hopefully you enjoyed. And with that, this is season 1 of the NSL, and we'll see you next week, where the next match is Royal Blackfeet, which is the 8th LR, FRL, and 26th versus the SCP-38. Hey, that's my team, the NR-22, the NO-16, and the 7 Foos, who are newly becoming part of our team in the SCP-38. So we promise you it's going to be a good one. So, all right, with that, everyone, this is Amit and KraKRNs signing off. Take care, everyone.
Goodbye.